can minimize this.
Great, thank you. So a very brief history of the porch. A couple years ago, this is what it looked like. It's a bare stretch of, it was a bare stretch of concrete, or it was parallel parking outside of 30th Street Station. And this is what the area looked like. I think one of the challenges with the porch continues to be, and will be for artists that we work with, it's a place of mobility. It's a place of movement. You've got a highway next to the site. You've got a train station. You've got thousands of people walking in and out of the porch. And one of the fundamental design questions with the porch has always been, how do we get people to stop? How do we get people to slow down in this place of amazing activity? So this is what the area looked like a couple years ago. And because this area is built above the train tracks, there was a massive Pennsylvania Department of Transportation effort to rebuild all of the bridge structures. And in the process of that, the porch was created. And so this is what it looked like. This is what the PennDOT project built. It was this bare stretch of concrete. It's a very long site. It's 500 feet long by 50 feet wide. And so we came in and we layered a little bit on top of that. And part of the reasons why we layered on top of that was because it's a very important site to Philadelphia. There are, it's the second busiest train station in the Amtrak system. A lot of Philadelphians commute through the area, and there's a huge amount of employment in the area. And this is an area that's, because of sort of the existing images I showed you, there are very few amenities in the area. And there's a huge amount of development planned for the future. So we have long had this vision, and again, the porch is an ongoing journey. It's not something that's done. It's not something that will be done anytime in the near future. And so we're really excited to have artists now part of the adventure. But we have this long-term vision of the porch as one of Philadelphia's great public spaces. But because we had to act quickly on top of that PennDOT plan, we sort of lowered our expectations, at least in the short term, and we started looking at Broadway Plaza as the example for what the porch should be, just because it's a similarly important and active place for Philadelphia. And it was, this was closer in line to our budget abilities in the short term. So again, here's another picture of Broadway Plaza. So we very quickly and very economically just layered some very simple furnishings on top of the blank stretch of sidewalk. So tables, chairs, umbrellas, planters. Here a couple images. The planters actually that we used, here they are. I think you can see them sort of along the street. We couldn't afford real planters, so we used agricultural troughs that livestock eat out of, that we kind of retrofitted with green roof technology, and we paid careful attention to plants. We actually did a pretty modest art installation with Nami Yamamoto, who did a little bit of an installation on the planters, which was interesting to us, but I think we're open to all sorts of possibilities. Stewardship of the site has been something that we are very, very focused on. We have a security presence on the site 8 to 10 hours a day, which we have the opportunity to add to if we need to. They also take care of our plants and kind of our eyes on the site elsewhere. But I think in my opinion, what makes the porch and our work at the porch really unique is that, if you use kind of a computer analogy, usually when you build a public space, you kind of build the hardware first, and then you figure out the software, how people actually use it. And in the case of the porch, we've led with the software, and we've put minimal capital investment in the site, but we just layered a huge amount of programming, which we see as the real demand driver for the space. So everything from farmers markets, music. We did a beer garden, which was tremendously successful. Here's another farmers market image. We did artist-designed pianos for a short period of time, which was also very successful. We do a lot of events for food trucks. We've done a craft market at the porch. We did a local radio station, WXPN, does one, and next year we'll do 2 free at noon concerts at the porch. But this has really been the driver. I mean, we've got, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this in a minute. We have a huge amount of people walking through the site, at some times of the day, 1,000 people an hour. We've got a huge amount of employment around the site, people that, there's demand for a space like this. And we've got, the train station, and so there are a lot of people driving people to the site, and I think that, pretty modestly, we've been able to put together the key ingredients to make that happen. So this is the part that's a little bit geeky, but I'm hopeful that whoever we end up working with through this grant will sort of find this stuff interesting and be responsive to it. I think it's alluded to in the RFQ, and I'm going to pass out hard copies to those of you who are in person. And for everyone joining us online, the PDF there's a link to the PDF in the RFQ. But what we did that I think is unique and that we're really proud of is we collected a huge amount of data over our first year of how the porch was used. And so I'm going to give you just, a quick sampling of some of the things that we learned. A sheet that looks like this was filled out every hour on the hour, so we know exactly who was at the porch, sort of age ranges, gender, what they were doing. And I think, frankly, if this is of interest to whomever we work with, even in terms of coming up with a proposal for us in the next stage, I think we could come up with some customized information, but can give you all a sense of what we have available. And so this is what the report looks like that we put out last fall. Huge amount of data about how people actually use the space. But we learned things like this. We learned a lot about how people use the space, where people use the space. So like a couple of quick examples are where people are, and we found that, for example, the west side of the porch is used a lot more than the eastern side. So that to us, is there an opportunity to do some sort of installation on the eastern side that would really animate and activate the porch? Absolutely. We know a lot about who our users are and when they're there and what they're doing there and what they came from, which I think has good implications for placemaking. We know how many of them like to shade. We know how many of them like to sit. We know where they like to sit. We know things like how they traverse the site. So as far as maximizing the impact of whatever temporary art we do, I think we've got a huge amount of data. So I think that in a really quick, that's sort of the quick version, of where we are with the story of the porch. So I think we've got obviously have a lot of information in the RFQ. But if anyone has any questions, I think in a nutshell, in all seriousness, what we are looking for in proposal, obviously we do the RFQ first, and then we'll have proposals. But I think our focus really is on activating and animating the porch. We want to bring, everything we do is about bringing more people there and engaging the people that walk by or pass through the area really quickly. Like if we can get, if we can get these harried commuters that commute by the thousands every hour through the site, if we can give them a moment of sort of animation or levity or engagement to kind of, improve quality of life, to put it in bland terms, that's absolutely what we're seeking. So I think with that, maybe turn it over to folks in the room first if anyone has any questions, or no questions in the room. Any questions from the folks online? Is there anything that Seth and I can elaborate on? Otherwise, this might be the shortest workshop in history.
I've got some questions.
Please.
I guess because it is such a flexible space at the moment,
Yeah.
It just seems great that XPN can come in and set up and build out with people, and then the next day it can be something different. With the temporary art, do you see it as less of an object and more of a flexible, that it wouldn't necessarily occupy a certain footprint all the time? And does it need to be flexible, like the porch currently functions?
So the question, I think, so to repeat it for the people online, is about flexibility and how, I guess, any temporary art installation would kind of work with our programming schedule and the like. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I guess the answer is that we're flexible. quite frankly, this is going to be one of our biggest and most important initiatives that we have at the Porch in 2014, and I think that we will develop our programming schedule around this. But I think we're really truthfully open to anything. I think the weight restriction is very real, but I think we are open to things that would, I think in the wintertime when we do lots of programming, I think that there's an opportunity to really kind of, probably take up more space. But I think, you could almost imagine with the right installation kind of covering the entire porch because, we have fewer users then. But, truthfully, we're open. I think that there are a couple spaces. Maybe I can go back to a site plan if we've got one. Can the folks online see that?
Let's minimize this. And they can see whatever's in this window.
Okay, so this is probably not a great image, but I, for whatever reason, wasn't digging and didn't include a site plan here. And maybe this one is even better. But if you think of the porch as a linear site, that's tables and chairs and umbrellas and planters. There's a large space in the middle. And this, I'm not sure if the folks on their computers can see where the arrows are, but the middle of the site is what we call the meadow, jokingly, because it's empty and there's nothing there. So you can almost imagine a large sort of installation there. You could imagine something that takes up one of the rooms, which is what we call the spaces divided by planters. You could imagine a light installation that's a nighttime that animates the space at night, because that's not a time when we've been very successful engaging people there. I think that our focus above all else is really placemaking and animating and activating the space. And if there is a great idea, we will arrange our schedules and arrange what's going on in the site to accommodate it.
And anywhere on here does it say the time that it would be up for?
No, it doesn't. And frankly, again, we're totally flexible. It could be something that's 18 hours, or it could be something that's 6 months. We just want the best ideas out there. So we tried to constrain it. Yeah.
To say how long it would exist.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that, we really tried to minimize the constraints just to come up with the best ideas out there.
Development. I guess you guys would be comfortable with doing something that's a very short period of time, very temporary, but really awesome?
Absolutely. The question was, would we be up for something that's very temporary but very awesome? And we said yes, definitely yes.
And then on the other end of that, something that could potentially be permanent and it was well received.
Absolutely. So one, I showed you the installation we did on the planters, but something that I think, we didn't call temporary art per se, but I think is really analogous to what we've been doing at the Porch and want to do at the Porch is something called Looped In that we did. We did a little design competition among some architecture firms in Philadelphia to come up with what we call the social seat experiment. And I think it actually might be in the last page of the report. Yes. So it was something like that, that we saw as something that would get moved around a lot and go in for the season, but it's been wildly successful, and it's out there, it's out at the Porch right now. So we would absolutely be open to something that's a little bit more structural, and a little bit more permanent.
For you guys, is it something where this is kind of you're experimenting with something and looking for some kind of long-term solution? Like it seemed like when you were saying at least at first you didn't have initially like a long-term kind of solution for like you guys. Is this something just to test out the waters to see if it could be something?
As far as the temporary art?
Yeah.
So the question was about whether we see any temporary art at the porch as being experimental as far as, what our long-term goals may or may not be at the porch. I think we're really open to that. I mean, you could almost imagine a scenario where an artist designed shade structure is proposed as we think about shade and interesting ways of handling that. You could almost, we'd be excited to see something relating to horticulture as well. But yeah, I think that we're really open to that. Again, like our focus really is on animation and activation and really just getting people there and getting them engaged. Nothing is more important. Beyond that, we can try to make anything work. And the weight limit. The weight limit's really important. We've gotten in trouble there. What is the weight limit? Is the question that came from online. I think it's in the 300 pounds per square foot. There are actually parts of the porch where there's a little bit more reinforcement because the porch is entirely on a bridge structure and the porch is entirely above the Amtrak Northeast Corridor line. So they're very active rails right below the porch. But there are some places that are a little bit more reinforced than others. So, when we have our 5 or so finalists come out, we can, we can do a detailed tour. Well, Seth, who's here, gets the credit for that. He was the driver of that project.
Yeah, and like Prima mentioned, if you had specific questions that pertain to your project that you're thinking, there's a lot that's not published too. So we'd be very eager. We think it's really cool to let the data drive the use, obviously. So we'd be eager to work with the winner on tailoring stuff to your needs.
Did the folks online hear Seth just now? No. Can you repeat? Here, come here.
Yeah, I'm just repeating that in addition to the data that's published in the report on the analysis there, we collected kind of any question that you could ask about how the space is used, we could probably answer. So and we're extremely eager to to work with the artist on using that data to maximal effect. So if questions aren't addressed there, we'd be happy to work with you on them.
Could it be something that starts to, I don't know how much, I know it's portions of outside exterior only, but as far as the restaurants and stuff on the inside of the building, I don't know if that starts to, if that was you ever thought about, where there's some kind of play between the outside and the inside, or if it's just strictly on the outside of the building and that's kind of everything else on the inside is separate.
I think the question is whether any installation could kind of relate to the inside of the station as well as the porch. I think anything is possible, but I think there's a good chance that we could reach out to the folks at Amtrak about that, and the answer could be no. So I think it would have to be standalone too. Well, I don't want to take up too much time. I'm really grateful for the people that came into our office as well as those of you who joined us online. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me. My email, and I'm going to type it in just so everybody has it. It's prema@universitycity.org, and please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any additional questions. Thank you.